they're going to share about it. See if you can tell what this ingredient is.
I've served in Gary, West Virginia, War, West Virginia, and now in the town and city and stuff around Liberty.
I've gotten to serve in Young Life's Capernaum, and then this summer I got to go on a Young Life expeditions trip to New Orleans.
For serving, I went to Student Life Camp at Liberty University.
I have served at many places, Thrive being one of them. Thrive is a camp for children with disabilities, and I have served with my mom and dad at their church, which is Restoration Church.
Before I got started serving, I was nervous. I didn't know where I'd fit in, who I'd be serving alongside, who I would be serving, and how much of my time it would take up.
At first, I had a little bit not so great of an attitude towards serving, just because I thought it might not be the most fun thing to do.
One year when I went to Gary, West Virginia, we served with this kids group, and I was able to see these kids that weren't really able to go to summer camp be able to have an experience like summer camp.
One of the hardest things about serving was just keeping a good attitude and staying productive, because as fun as it can be, it can also be hard work. So there are times when you want to take a break, but you just need to keep going, because serving is about other people and not yourself.
Another hard experience is when I helped my dad at work, and he told me I had to get up with him at 3 o'clock in the morning to walk with him.
My hardest experience is we had to make lunches to give out to the whole town of Gary, and also one in War where they came in and ate, and just being in the kitchen was really stressful, and having to make all those lunches and all those, putting all this stuff together and making sure you didn't put something extra in one bag so somebody didn't feel left out.
I had a camper that would continuously run away from me, sometimes for a reason, sometimes not for a reason. And I think the hard part about that was not the part where I had to chase him down. He wasn't terribly fast, but the part where I had to then talk to him and try to understand what it was he was running from or to.
Serving changed me just because I realized that little things can really contribute to people's lives that maybe don't have as much, and God really wants you to help people out and give them opportunities that they may not have had otherwise.
Serving changed my life because when I was little, I used to be selfish. Once I started to serve other people, I really opened up and I wasn't selfish anymore. Now I like to give more than I like to receive.
What actually happened when I went to serve people is I was able to feel selflessness and also get closer to God while helping other people.
Through serving, I've changed people's lives both in large ways and in small ways. Something as simple as giving them something to eat can make their day. But something like talking to a special needs camper about Jesus, that can be life-changing.
Isn't that awesome? Welcome again to Crossroads Westminster. My name is Kevin Size. I'm the campus pastor here at the Westminster campus. So glad you joined us today. Welcome to all those that are joining us online. I'm glad that you're jumping in with us as well. And we're in week 2 of our series called Secret Sauce. And we're going to be talking about, actually I need to ask you guys what your favorite sauce is, because I'm a sauce guy. I love all kinds of different sauces. I like sriracha sauce. I like, buffalo sauce. I like hot sauces. You know what? Someone in the room, maybe Sweet Baby Ray's buffalo sauce. Someone like some of that? So anyone? How about this one? This one's a good one. How about Chick-fil-A sauce? Come on now. I don't know what that stuff is, but it is so good. This is a great series, Reed, but it's making me hungry, to be honest with you. Why don't you turn to someone next to you and tell them what your favorite sauce is before we jump in? All right. I'm hearing some good answers out there. I do have to say, I asked my kids what their favorite sauce was. They said ketchup. I said, that's not really a good answer. So one of my favorite, someone else has just got offended. I'm sorry if that's your favorite sauce. But anyway, one of my favorite hobbies is the great American pastime of barbecue. I get pretty into barbecue. I take it pretty seriously. I've got a smoker, a slow cook smoker, and I put beef brisket on there. It takes all day, but it is amazing. Anyone else like barbecue out there? Take their barbecue seriously. This right here is the service for barbecue. You guys got more excited about that than anyone else did. So we should all be partying sometime. That'd be good. But anyway, I love barbecue, right? And what I've realized as I've gotten into barbecue is that you can get everything right when you're barbecuing. You can get the right cook time. You can get the right cut of meat. You can have the right equipment. But if you get the sauce wrong, it's like, forget about it, right? I mean, there's no point in even trying it. And so the secret really is in the sauce. That's what I've realized as I've barbecued. And some of our favorite brands get this too, right? I mean, Bush's Baked Beans, they got the secret recipe. No one can know about what the recipe is, right? Or how about the original formula for Coca-Cola Classic? Or the 11 herbs and spices of KFC chicken. I mean, some of these things are like guarded company secrets. No one can know about what's going on behind the scenes there. But here's what we're saying during this series over the next couple weeks, is that we believe the ingredients that make our church who we are shouldn't be a secret to anyone, right? That we have 5 vision ingredients, 5 elements that make Crossroads. And every one of those 5 is important. If you take even just one of them out, you're going to be missing something. And so we're in week 2, and we're looking at another super important element of who we are as Crossroads. We're looking at the ingredient today of serve, right? How important it is for us to serve, and what it means for us to serve together. And this is huge. I mean, this is a huge topic. Just look around on any given Sunday, and you're going to see this, because you've got parking and ushers and greeters and kids and student leaders and the tech team back here. And you've got people there's so many people that make Sunday happen. If we didn't understand how important serving was, we might as well just shut the doors. I mean, there's just no way we could do what we do week in and week out. That's how important this ingredient is to our church. Now, there's all kinds of places we could look at and talk about what it means to serve, but today I want to actually look at the life of Abraham, and I think he's a great picture of this. Now, for you, even if you aren't a Christian, even if you have zero interest whatsoever in the Bible, understanding who Abraham is a good move on your part. Why? Because to understand Abraham, you're going to have an understanding of a huge part of world culture. I mean, a huge part. Because basically every major faith tradition looks to Abraham as the father of their faith. I mean, Muslims and Jews and Christian, all 3 of them see Abraham as a father figure in their faith. And so that's actually what Abraham's name means. It means father. And so you're going to hear me refer to Abraham and Abram. It's the same guy. Don't get mixed up. God changes his name later on. Basically, Abram means daddy. Abraham means big daddy, okay? That's basically the difference there. And Abraham, his life is compelling when you really get into it and you look at it. Because Abraham didn't just let life happen to him. No, Abraham happened to life. This guy went at life. And I love that about Abraham. In the words of the great William Wallace, every man dies, but not every man truly lives. Abraham lived life. He stood against the norms of the day, his society, and his culture, and he basically redefined what it meant to live life for all of us because of it. He lived a big life. Don't we all want to live a big life? Don't we all want to live a life of eternal consequence? I mean, so often, though, what happens is we step back in the middle of our lives and we're not really sure that this is happening. We're not sure we're living that kind of a life. We move through the journey that we call life, and we go to high school, we start a life there, maybe a career, we head into college. We work our tails off for years and years and years. Maybe we make some money, and before you know it, you're sitting at an empty nest, retirement. You're at the end of your life, or maybe even in the middle of your life, and you step back and you ask, is there more? Like, did I miss something in my life? Like, what is my life really supposed to be about? Abraham in Genesis 12 is a picture of someone who took a huge step and lived a different kind of life. But to understand how monumental the moment is that we're going to unpack in just a second here, you have to understand the backdrop of the story that we're going to read. See, leading up to this moment in Genesis 12, the story that we're going to read, the passage that we're going to read in just a second, humanity has been basically unraveling up to this point. And sin enters the scene in Genesis 3, and it's been a steady decline from that point all the way down into darkness and despair, and more people are more corrupt than ever before, but there's this one ray of hope in the middle of all of that. One family line that God is keeping, the line in the family of Seth, has stayed faithful and true. And in a dark world, this one family is keeping the candle of hope burning. And really the last family serving the one true God. And that's why Genesis 11, leading up to this passage for today, is a picture of utter disaster for us. Really, the backdrop of our story today is hopelessness. See, we find in Genesis 11 that the last hope, the last true family preserving the knowledge of the one true God, has actually fallen into worship of other gods. And how do we know that? Well, Abraham's father, his name was Terah, actually refers to a lunar god, which indicates that they've given themselves over to idol worship. Joshua 24, if you want to read there, also confirms this. And so we have this one last hope, this one last family following the one true God. And then we see this light that's kind of dimming and dimming and dimming, and it's about to go out. And as if that weren't bad enough, Abraham, the last one in this line, is 75 years old, and his wife Sarah, or Sarai, is barren, and they have no hope of having children. Can you feel the hopelessness in this picture? Chapter 11 is like an apt title here because humanity is spiritually and physically in chapter 11 here, totally bankrupt. It's the end of the line. It's game over. I can't even see how the story is going to turn at this moment. But then God speaks, and there's hope again. Right here into this moment, God decides to wade into the mess of humanity and change the direction of the story. And what we find in that moment is that God does his best work in graveyards. What we find is that we serve a God who just loves to breathe life into dead places. And in this moment, he speaks a promise of life and blessing into what looks like a hopeless situation. And so let's look at that in Genesis 12. If you have your Bibles right now, you can open those up, or the passage will also be on the screen. The Lord had said to Abraham, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. And I'll make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I'll make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you." And so Abraham went, as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abraham was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. Can you just imagine this scene for a second? Abraham, or Abram, whichever you want, this guy is just kind of sitting back. He's in the lazy boy right here, right? I mean, he's in retirement mode. This guy is 75 years old. He's like, basically, he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got no kids. I'm going to fish. I'm going to do some golfing or whatever, right? I mean, he's sitting there and he's like, this is great. I'm excited about this. This is the life, right? I made it. And all of a sudden, God shows up and he gives him a picture of a life and a mission that's bigger than himself. Abraham's call in this moment was epic. It's so epic that we are talking about it now thousands and thousands of years later. But guess what? God is still in the business of calling us. He's still in the business of blessing us so that we can bless other people. And maybe God, for you, he's not breaking down your tent right now or speaking directly to you, but I can promise every one of us here in this room has a mission and a purpose that comes from God. And so I want to look at three things about this mission that all of us are called to, whether you realize it or not. Three things about the mission. And the first one is that the mission is going to change your perspective. The second one is that the mission is going to cost you something. And then the third one is that the mission will ignite your faith. And so let's start with this first one, with number one. The mission that God is calling you to is going to change your perspective. Like, this is what we see in Abraham's life, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that Abraham was in his comfort zone, right? I mean, he's just kind of hanging out. He's coasting his way to retirement. He's kicking it at home. All of us have our comfort zones, all right, whether we realize it or not. I think that all of us really like the comfortable life, don't we? I mean, this is kind of, I think for us, many of us, we're just kind of like, we're going to take comfort to a whole different art form. I think really today, in our culture today, we've taken comfort to a level that no one's ever seen before. It's pretty amazing. Like back in the day, if you wanted to shop, you actually had to get out in your car and you had to drive somewhere. Can you imagine that? That's crazy, right? Not anymore. You don't have to do that. You just get out your phone, you go on Amazon, something comes a couple days later. It's like magic. This is amazing. In fact, it's so amazing now that we've taken this comfort to a whole different level that I can just say, hey, Alexa, can you send me a t-shirt? Yeah, that'd be great. And then suddenly, magically, Alexa sends me something. I don't even know how this works. It's crazy. And so this is kind of a picture, like so many of us, we kind of just want to do this in our lives. And we just kind of want to be in the comfort zone. And we really believe that this is God's will for us. Many of us, we have this picture and idea that this is God's will for our lives, that we're just going to sit here and wait for God to send his blessing down. Hey, God, I'm ready. Anytime you want to send blessing down on me. And this is the picture that we have of what life should look like. But listen, you know what? I mean, that all of us get that. All of us understand that. All of us kind of have the gravitational pull of comfort in our lives. Have you ever had the exact opposite experience of being totally out of your comfort zone? I'm sure all of us have, or feeling totally out of control. Like I can remember I was on vacation and this feeling happened to me. I had an experience that reminds me of this. Like I was on vacation in Florida with my family. We're at the beach. It's the last day that we're there in Florida. It's a beautiful day, and I had a genius dad idea. I mean, I was pretty proud of myself when I came up with this. I was like, family memory, guys. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go and get some seafood takeout, right? We're going to get it. We're going to take it on the beach for dinner. It's going to be the sunsets coming down right here. The waves are coming in. Can you imagine this? Come along with me. Isn't this great? I mean, it's going to be beautiful. And then so we get there. We get all of our stuff out there. We get all of our kind of picnic stuff ready to go. We have the food out there. My kids are hanging out. And everything falls apart. It gets bad. Okay, you just wait. The sky starts to darken, at first I was like, "Is there clouds overhead?" No, there are literally hundreds of seagulls. And I remember looking up and thinking to myself, "Well, that's kind of weird. I wonder why there's so many seagulls right now." And then all of a sudden, the seagulls start dive bombing my kids with the shrimp in their hands. I couldn't even believe it. It was like an onslaught of seagulls, one after another. They were coming at us, and all of a sudden, like everything's slow motion. I tell my kids, run for safety. Drop the food. Take care of yourselves. And I'm out there, and I'm getting like the beach chair. I promise you guys have a mental picture here in a second. I get the beach chair, and I'm shielding my kids from the birds. I'm trying to hit them away from my kids and all this stuff. Oh my gosh, talk about being out of my comfort zone, right? I mean, I was totally out of control. I felt totally out of my comfort zone. No one likes to be out of their comfort zone. No one likes to feel like they're out of control. And I would say that it takes something major for any of us to move out of our comfort zone, to move off of the sofa and the call of comfort and move into something else. And so the call that Abraham received had to have been powerful, because it was powerful enough to shift his entire mindset, to break him out of the routine and rhythm of his ordinary life and the comfort that he had and the retirement mode that he was in. And isn't that what God does for all of us? Isn't that what encountering God does for each of us in our lives? That God interrupts the routine of our ordinary lives, and he calls us to a different kind of life. Like, what else is strong enough to call us from the comfort in our lives other than the call of God? Abraham had absolutely no reason to leave the life that he was in. He had all the wealth. He had to say no to that. He had to say no to the old gods. He had to say no to the old places. He had to say no to his family. And out of all of that, he had to take a step and do something completely different. And so in that moment, he was willing to say no to all of those things. And in that moment, the whole revolution starts. The whole story pivots because he's willing to walk away from all of those things and the comfort that they held. And each and every person here in this room has the exact same choice. We have the exact same call in our lives. There comes a moment in each of our lives where we have to make a choice between the gravitational pull of comfort and this compelling call of God. Now, that might not mean for you what it meant for Abraham. That might not mean that you're packing up your bags and you're going to a different country. But it looks different for all of us, but I can promise you this, that it is true for each and every one of us. Every one of us is called. There's no doubt about it. In fact, I would say for all of us who are Christians here today, who are following Christ, that this call is at the very center of our lives. That the call happened to Abraham and it happens to us. God came to Abraham and he said, go. And Jesus came to us in the very first believers and he says to us at the Great Commission, go, make disciples. And Abraham's response that we see in this passage is a model for how we can all respond to God's call in our lives. I mean, just look at Abraham, right? I mean, this is crazy. This guy's pretty much a mess if you read the backstory. I would argue that Abraham seems completely unqualified to be written into a major role in God's redemption story, and yet here he is. He's right in the middle of it. And so maybe for you, you feel the same way. You kind of sit there and say, you know what, Kevin, this is great. God's calling me, sure. I mean, but why would God call me? Like, what do I have to offer? Why would God care about me? And maybe you feel like Abraham, a little too old, or maybe you feel a little too young, or maybe you feel like Sarah in this story and you feel hopeless, or maybe you feel like your life is in darkness, or you feel like you don't have the right education, or whatever it is, you fill in the blank what it is for you. Listen. God doesn't call the qualified, right? God qualifies those that he called. I'm going to say that again. God doesn't call the qualified. He actually qualifies those that he called. In fact, literally, basically every hero in the Bible from the very beginning, God calls these like unqualified people, and he says, go. God appears to Moses in a burning bush, and he says, go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. And he leads them into the promised land, and despite uncertainty, they go. God comes to Jeremiah and tells him, go to all whom I send, and despite feeling incompetent and unprepared, he goes. Think about Mary in the Christmas story, right? I mean, this is amazing. She gets this news that she's going to bear a child, and she's young, and she's scared, and she goes. And Jesus appears to people like Matthew and Levi. These are tax collectors. That's crazy, right? I mean, if there's anyone that was unqualified, Simon and James and John, fishermen. And he says, you know what? Leave your world and follow me, and they go. Again and again and again, Scripture presents us with people who follow God. They leave the familiar, they leave the comfortable, they leave the call of that, and they do something else. And again, people step out despite the potential cost in their lives. And that leads us to the second thing that I want to look at with you here today, that this mission will cost you. Literally, God says to Abraham in this passage, get thee out. That's like the King James translation, but he's just kind of sitting here. Abraham's hanging out, retirement mode, life is good, and he hears God say, get thee out. King James, that's actually a better translation. It's actually get yourself out of here is the literal translation of what God's saying. And Abraham's like, get myself out of here. Where am I going, God? What do you mean? I'm not going to tell you. God doesn't even tell him where he's going. Abraham's like, wait a second. You're not even going to tell me where I'm going? Well, hey, God, what about, like, I'm 75 years old, and my wife can't have kids, and you said I was going to be a father? Like, how's that going to work? Oh, I'll tell you later, Abraham. Don't worry about that. Like, can you imagine what this must have been like for him? Goodness, I don't like driving to Baltimore without my GPS on, right? Seriously, I don't. I mean, this guy is sent out into the unknown before there were even roads to get to the unknown that he's going. It's not like God's like, hey, head down the highway, get exit 3 and head off over there. No, I mean, he doesn't have a realtor that's checking out real estate and scoping out the right property for him when he gets someplace. He doesn't even know where he's going. And he's leaving his home never to return again. Talk about surrender, right? That's a picture of surrender. Surrender. I mean, isn't that what God wants from all of us? Like a person who has that level of surrender in their lives, watch out. God's going to do big things with them. Your impact for the kingdom, listen, is directly proportional to your level of surrender in your life. And Abraham here is a picture of someone who just wrote a blank check. Whatever you want, God, wherever you want to take me, whatever you need, I'm willing to go. I'm in. And this is so hard for us. It sounds good on paper, but the reality when we actually live it out is really, really hard. And that's why so often whenever we see people that are just starting to follow Jesus, it's so often they ask all these questions. They ask questions like, well, okay, so if I follow Jesus, does that mean I'm going to have to change my calendar? Am I going to have to set my priorities differently? So like if I follow Jesus, does that mean I'm going to have to break up with my boyfriend or my girlfriend? Like, am I going to have to stop doing this, or am I going to have to start doing this? And what are we asking in all of those questions? What's underneath all of those questions? Do I really have to surrender? Like, do I really have to give God control? Is following Jesus, is it going to cost me something? Listen, following the call of Jesus does cost us something. In fact, Jesus himself said, before you follow me, Count the cost, because it's incredibly costly. But just like Abraham found that there's blessing that's so much bigger than the cost that we have in our lives. It's going to cost you everything to truly follow Jesus, if we're to be honest. But you get everything and more in return. And so I have to ask you, are you willing to write a blank check to God? Are you willing to put everything on the table? No restrictions, no limitations, no reservations, and say to God, whatever you want, whatever you need from me. Because I think it's so common for us to stop, to go halfway. I mean, we like the idea of serving. We hear the stories up here on stage, or we see videos of people serving, or people serving on Sunday, and we think, oh, that's good for them. That's really good. But there's something that stops us from actually taking that step on our own lives. Listen, it wasn't enough for Abraham just to be associated with the right family. No, he had to personally respond to God's call in his life. And that's true for every one of us here today. You have to respond to God yourself. And here's the thing, though. So often, we're just sitting here hoping that God blesses us. We're waiting for God to bless us. We're kind of in this posture, in this safety zone posture. And what happens, and I want you guys to hear this, is that if that's your posture in life, you are going to be empty. You're going to be empty, right? Instead what we have to do, God says in this moment, is that we find blessing as we go out and we're blessing other people in our lives. In other words, is your focus out here on other people, or is your focus in here? And this is the shift that happened in Abraham's life. It's the shift that happens in all of our lives. The more that we're out here and concerned with blessing other people and caring for other people, the more we actually receive God's blessing in our own lives. And so the question for you is, are you willing to get out and go and do exactly what Abraham was called to serve? Or is your focus out here, or is your focus in here? And if you're willing to go and live this kind of life and to serve and to bless people, watch out, watch what God is going to do. It's going to be amazing. And so let me ask you, are you willing to go? Are you willing to step into mission and serve? Are you willing to do it even if it means stepping into the unknown, even if it means you don't even know exactly where God is taking you? I think it's like this first step out of the sofa and the gravitational pull of comfort into something else is the very hardest step. But listen. The moment that we take that step and we go, that's the moment we realize that we're not alone, that God is going to walk right there with us. And that leads me to the third and final thing that I want to look at here together, is that the mission will ignite your faith. The mission will ignite your faith. And we realize as we take this big step in our lives that that's the moment that God shows himself in big ways, that when we completely surrender to God's will in our lives, that's the moment where we begin to experience him in real and new and in different ways. And we so often wish that we could substitute an ingredient. Do I really have to serve? Could I do something else? Can I exchange this for something else? There's no way to substitute this ingredient. It's absolutely crucial to what God wants to do in all of our lives. We have to go. We have to respond to the call. And I just have to say, look around this room for just a second. Look around. The reason that we're meeting right here in this moment is the fact that someone a long time ago, years and years ago, said, you know what, I don't know, I feel like God's calling me to start a church. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that's actually going to, I know that's going to be a sacrifice. That's a financial risk, whatever it is, but I'm willing to go, God. I'm willing to do it. And here we are. We're sitting here because someone said, I'll go. Right here in this moment in Hampstead, there's a group of people that are worshiping at the same time we are. And it all started because there's a group of people here in Westminster that said, you know what, listen, I'm not sure what this means. It's kind of scary. It's a little bit uncertain, but I'm going to go. I'm willing to respond to the call. Literally every Sunday, hundreds of kids and students, there's a group of leaders that are willing to invest in the next generation. They're saying, you know what, I'm going to give them my time. It's a sacrifice. It's difficult, but I'm willing to serve. I'm willing to go. We have people serving on mission all over the world. We have people serving in cold weather shelters and parking teams and care leaders. We have greeters. We've got the tech team back there. Shout out to the tech team. These guys are amazing. They're saying, listen, I'm willing to go. I'm willing to get up early. I'm willing to sacrifice. It would be easier to sleep in, but I found this blessing in my life, and I'm willing to go and step out. So here's the question for each of you. Are you going to stay, or are you going to go? This is not a question for the super spiritual few in the room. This is a call, the same call that was on Abraham's life is on all of our lives as well. Go and watch God bless you. That's what God's saying to all of us today. It's go. And that's the good life. That's what the good life is all about. It's not this kind of safe, tidy life that we try to cling to. The stories that all of us are drawn to, the people that we're drawn to, the lives that we're drawn to, are the people that are willing to give of themselves something in sacrifice and watch what happens when they do that. And don't we all want to live a life like that? And so I want to give you a couple really clear ways that you can live this out today. The first one is you got a card as you're walking in. It says serve on the front. And on the back, there's all kinds of different spots that you could serve at Crossroads. And I just would encourage you to look at this, think about this, pray about this. And maybe some of you are going to say, you know what, I'm willing to go. I'm going to go into family ministry. I'm going to go into creative arts. I'm going to join the tech team because those guys are awesome. I'm going to join the adult small group leader team, whatever it is. I'm going to serve in the Next Steps team. And so I just want to encourage you guys to think about this, pray about this. And here's what you're going to do if you have an interest in serving in any of these areas as we get ready to move into the fall, is that you can actually fill out your communication card and you can say, hey, I'm interested in one of these areas, turn it in. You could go to the Next Step Center. There's a leader there that would love to have a conversation with you about serving in any of these areas. And last thing I just want to mention really quick since it's today is that if you're interested in serving kids or student ministry, we actually have the family leader launch happening tonight. We would love to have you there, 6:30 here at Westminster. You're invited to come. You don't have to sign up or anything like that. Just come and hang out with us. We would love to have you. And then the second one that I want you guys to think about, another step that you might be able to make, is that some of you going means going to the Eldersburg campus in a couple weeks. If you live in Eldersburg, this is your moment. If we're sitting in this room and we're gathered in this place because someone at some point was willing to say, I'll go, I'll do it, send me. And so this is your turn, Eldersburg. This is your chance to step out and do that. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys for a second here. I know the people that are going to leave in a couple weeks. It kind of breaks my heart to think about losing them. Some of my favorite people here at Westminster, we're going to send them down there. But listen, we cannot miss this. It's in the going that we're blessed. And for some, that means going to Eldersburg. For others, it's going to mean going and serving in a different way here in Westminster. Whatever it is, this is our heart for each and every person in the room. We don't want you to miss it. This isn't about some hole that we need filled in a roster of volunteer leaders or something like that. This is about a pattern of transformation in our lives. I believe this is how God has wired all of us up, that we receive blessing in our lives in order for us to go out and give that blessing to someone else, that we receive in order to give. And if we stop halfway in this pattern, we're going to miss it. If you just stop after you receive the blessing, if you just stop at the comfort and the familiar, you're going to miss it. And if there's only one thing that you hear this morning, don't miss it. Don't miss what God has for you. Don't miss the blessing that God has for you. I think the best is yet to come here at Crossroads. The best is yet to come for us here at Westminster. I can't wait to see what God has next. But we can never get to where God is taking us, right, unless we're willing to go to that place. And so, Crossroads, hear this. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land that I will show you. And I'll make you great, and I'll bless you, and I'll make your name great, and you'll be a blessing. And I'll bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. God spoke that into a dead-end, hopeless moment, and one man's obedience changed history. And later, Jesus would do exactly the same thing as he came to earth. Abraham was called from darkness into light, but Jesus was called out of light in heaven and into darkness. He came in and he entered the world in the mess and the confusion and the pain of our world. Jesus left his comfort zone, right? He was in heaven. He was seated on the throne next to the Father, and he was willing to say, I'll go. And he stepped into the darkness, and he showed us what true light would look like. He showed us what it meant to live your whole life as a blessing. He showed us what it meant to truly serve one another. He took the very nature of a servant. And ultimately, Jesus showed us what it meant to put everything on the table. He wrote a blank check and say, I'll go. Whatever you need to do with my life. And to the point where he was willing to give his life for you and for me. We have received unbelievable blessing. Unbelievable blessing. Like the Father held nothing back from us. He gave us his very Son. And every day of our lives, every moment of our lives, we have to decide what we're going to do with that blessing. Pray with me, would you? Lord, I'm grateful for the people in this room, and I'm grateful for the blessing that we've all received. It's so much bigger than we can even really get our heads around. But Lord, I just pray in this moment that every person here in this room has a new sense and understanding of the blessing that we've received. And as they have an experience of your love and your blessing and your grace, Lord, that in that same moment that they would respond to the call to give that blessing away to someone else, to go, to leave the comfortable and the familiar and to step into a life that's bigger and better and to give to someone else and to watch what you do as we are obedient to do that in our lives. And so, Lord, I just thank you for the people in this room that are already serving, Lord. And I just pray that they experience as we move into the fall and a new season of ministry, another level of blessing, and Lord, that as they step out, that you would step with them and bless everything that they do and everything that they're a part of because of their serving here at Crossroads. And so, Lord, we just thank you for who you are. Give us your call now and allow us to respond. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So earlier in the service, you saw some students who began to answer the call of their lives. They have a few more things they'd like to share with you.
For serving, I didn't know God as well, and I didn't know that if I served other people, it would serve the Lord as well. After serving, I have gotten to know God a lot better in a major part of my life, and I've read the Bible now.
Before I started serving, people told me that God's love was strong and that it really helped people, but I couldn't see that. But while I was serving, God's love shone through me, just gave me an opportunity to see God's love physically and act with other people.
Before serving, I didn't really look at God as somebody that would help me in any situation, or I would only think about him as if something bad happened, then this is all his fault. But now I look at him as he makes everything happen for a specific reason, and it's that he cares about everyone and he treats everyone equally.
Serving has changed me in a way that when I first accepted Jesus, I saw God as a more distant God. But as I have served over the years, I've grown closer to him.
If anyone's thinking about serving, I would say definitely do it, because although you may think you don't have time or it might not be something you're interested in, once you do it and you really see God's love through it, you'll realize it's worth it, getting to help other people and growing closer to God through the process.
And so now it's our turn.